yesterday. And therefore, I will start with that list. Thereafter, we will come back to the names that are now appearing on the dashboard. Now, honorable senators, inasmuch as we agreed that there should be no points of orders called on members who have the floor, that calls upon each one of us, while on the microphone, to be responsible for the statements they are making. Please be factual. This does not mean that we have suspended our standing orders. Our standing orders are still very much running, and therefore, inasmuch as you are not going to be interrupted by way of points of order, please take responsibility of your statement and try to be as factual as you can. I was watching debate yesterday, and we were abusing that particular window that we had given yesterday. With that having been said, Senator, proceed to read the order.
Order number 11, motion, the current state of the nation.
Senator Beth Siengwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to speak to this motion. I stand to support the motion on the current state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, allow me to pass my sincere condolences to the families of those who lost their loved ones, and also to wish quick recovery to those who are still in hospitals with the gun wounds and other injuries. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to thank the leadership of this House, the majority leader, the minority leader, and all the senators who came together and said this is important, that we distinguish ourselves as a House. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable members, may the good senator be heard in silence, please. Proceed, Senator Beth.
Thank you, sir. I would say that as the Women League president in this country, I'm a mother, and I feel the pain that the mothers in this nation feel. I stand with all the families that were affected. And Mr. Speaker, noting the situation in the country, how life is so difficult, the cost of living is high. It is really unbearable because of the problems, issues bedeviling our country. As the women president, I want to assure all the women who lost their children that we are with you, and we feel your pain. We share the grief, and we are ready to work with you to get solutions to the issues in this country. Mr. Speaker, those who spoke yesterday, my colleagues who spoke yesterday, they alluded to the issues that are affecting our country. Taking department by department, or institution by institution, in education, our children are learned. Many are graduates from different universities, but they are jobless. They are tarmacking. And looking at the education system in the country, there is a lot of challenges. Confusion in JSS teachers who are not employed. CBC curriculum that is not properly defined. Issues concerning how the new system is being implemented. Those are issues Kenyans are looking at. I want to congratulate the Gen Z, who took the lead to open eyes of so many and say there are problems in this nation that needs urgent attention. Mr. Speaker, in the health sector, issues of confusion shifting from NHIF to SHIF to whatever, something that Kenyans cannot hold on. They have been promised universal health care. That is not happening. These are problems the Gen Z have also seen, as many of us have been saying. The economy that is suffering. We would wish as Kenyans to see GPD to grow by 2 digits if possible. But where are we? Our economy is affected by corruption and so many other issues. In agriculture, Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of problems. I am a member of Agriculture Committee in this Senate. And as a committee, when the issue of the fake fertilizer came up, as a committee, we went to the ground. We interacted with farmers. We got seeds of the fertilizer, fake fertilizer, where Kenyans were given stones and pieces of donkeys. We called the stakeholders who were concerned. They came in this chamber. We took them through what we had found out. Mr. Speaker, we have tried even to write a report that is yet to be concluded. And we found all indicators were showing the CS for agriculture is culpable. Why is he not sacked up to date? The police brutality. Mr. Speaker, it's so painful. On that fateful Tuesday, we were out when we got out as the Gen Z invaded these premises. I remember I was with my colleague senators here, Senator for Nairobi, Senator Catherine Muma, and we witnessed as the soldiers, the policemen were shooting our innocent, unarmed young men and women. Mr. Speaker, I remember I knelt down before one killer policeman. I confronted him and asked him, why is he killing an armed, innocent young man? Mr. Speaker, it was so hurting as a mother. That policeman looked at me and told me, Senator, get behind me. These are crooks and criminals from Kibra. The student who was being pursued removed his identification card, a student from a university. But the policeman could not hear anything of that. He shot the man dead. It was so painful. Why should we have police who should keep law and order in the country, protect citizens and property, killing our young men and women? Mr. Speaker, it has been said, and it was said yesterday by many of my colleagues, on the wastage in this government. Kenyans who are suffering, they have no jobs, they are tarmacking for over 10 years, they have nothing to put on the table in the evening. They are seeing all this. More than 20, 30 vehicles in a convoy of our leadership, of leaders in this nation. It pains to see how our resources are wasted, yet people are suffering. Unemployment has already been mentioned, and it is making our people suffer more. When those who are in a position to employ, Mr. Speaker, they are practicing nepotism and tribalism. You get to an institution, and somebody who is in a position to employ has brought relatives or people from his community, they are leading. I'm also in this house in the Committee of National Cohesion, Equal Opportunities, and regional integration. Mr. Speaker, we have called so many heads of institutions to come before us. And what is the repeated issue? That we find out people employed in those institutions come from at least 2 tribal groups or communities. They take 73%, they take 80%, leaving the rest of the Kenyans to struggle for 15% or maybe 20%. What are we telling our people in Kenya? It is so bad. Impunity. When people refuse to obey court orders, what are we communicating to those young people and all Kenyans looking at us? Corruption. Where, Mr. Speaker, we have new billionaires in town. Since the takeover of the current administration, I hear even in this house we have new billionaires. Where are the rest of Kenyans when we have new billionaires and Kenyans are suffering? And they are billionaires courtesy of corruption. Tendering processes, they are so skilled for specific people to make money. When a few are making money and a majority are suffering, what are we telling Kenyans? That Kenya has become like what we call the animal farm? Mr. Speaker, I would request that you, Davina, again, I'd request the senators to...
Order. Senator Enoch and Senator Mogeni. The senator speaking.
Kindly allow me to give my submissions, and you can continue conversing and making your arrangements.
Proceed, Senator.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was saying before I lose my point that corruption is so rampant in this nation, and Kenyans are looking at us and saying people are getting into leadership so that they may take advantage of those positions and make money. It is wrong. Kenyans are hurting when they see very few people who become billionaires, while majority or masses are suffering. Mr. Speaker, lack of inclusivity is very serious. As I have stated, where I sit in the Committee of Equal Opportunities, and we see Kenyans not given chance, they are not employed. When their employment positions or chances, they are given to people from specific ethnic communities. Mr. Speaker, my heart sank when I confronted one CEO of a certain institution in this nation. And when I asked her, why do you have only 2 tribes getting the big chunk of positions in this institution? She told me, sometimes, madam, we are under instructions. We are asked, when you do your employment or recruitment, you should know where the government belongs. Very sad. Mr. Speaker, when the leader of majority, who is now making noise with the senator for Nyandarua, kindly allow me to draw your attention, leader of majority. Yesterday you became an angel. I know you are born again. You are a new brother in Christ. I really appreciate that, majority leader. Kindly allow me to draw your attention that yesterday, or when we were conversing about this, you gave direction that as we speak of the problems and the issues affecting the country, we should also make proposals of what we think should be done to move Kenya forward. Allow me to start by saying, although I know many said it, but I would say the president may be well-meaning for this nation, but he has missed the mark in getting wrong people in good positions, those who should serve this country. Mr. Speaker, my first proposal is to request the president in all due respect to sack incompetent CSs. Those who have failed this nation, those who are carrying letters to funerals, to public rallies, and dishing out employment letters as if the rest of Kenyans do not need employment. And many those who have also meant us to get fertilizers, which is fake, and other evils. Mr. Speaker, my second one would be to request, if it is possible, not to have ghost workers in this nation. When I hear of a position like Prime Cabinet Minister, unconstitutional, I would declare that he is a ghost worker, drawing salary from Kenyan taxes. Unconstitutional offices should not be funded by public funds. To curb corruption, Mr. Speaker, is my third proposal. Let us be truthful. Let us be truthful. Let the government be truthful and stop those who are corrupt. Let us see serious action taken, people put to jail. When prominent people are put behind the bars, then people will fear, others will fear to practice corruption or to do corruption. Mr. Speaker, I would request, is it possible in this country, and I know I have lawyers in this house, to have designated areas for picketing? Because issues will be happening in this nation. And constitutionally, Kenyans are allowed to picket and to demonstrate peacefully. Can we have designated areas where people can picket? It has been done elsewhere. Can it be done in Kenya, Mr. Speaker? I would also request, is it possible because of police brutality to have retraining of our police officers to know how to handle demonstrators, especially peaceful people who are demonstrating peacefully, like the Gen Z was doing, only armed with a bottle of water, a flag, and their phones? Why should they be killed? Mr. Speaker, if not to retrain our officers, can we have a special unit to deal with maandamano in this nation so that we don't witness bloodshed? Mr. Speaker, if the president, to me and to what we are saying, let him sack the Inspector General of Police. Or if Koome is patriotic enough, let him resign now.
Senator Beth Siango, just hold. Can you pause her time, please? Is there a senator listening to some video through their phone? Senator Boni, you're totally out of order. Totally out of order. I'll just give you a caution for the day. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I was interrupted by the majority whip, Senator Mboni Alwale, I was saying that if Koome is patriotic enough, he should resign today because he has failed this nation. Mr. Speaker, my other proposal would be respectively asking the president to continue listening to Kenyans. It is important to listen and not to display tendencies of dictatorship or arrogance. Kenyans are watching. He should be the unifying factor of this nation. All Kenyans, those who voted for him, those who did not vote for him like me, we want to have him as the father figure of this nation, and he should lead all of us, but not to dictate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my other proposal would be, if possible, let institutions of this independent to be independent in institutions. We don't want to witness state capture of National Assembly, state capture of the judiciary, state capture of legislation. Please, let's have independent institutions work and actualize their mandate as independent institutions in this nation. Mr. Speaker, I would propose also, if Kenyans are going to be taxed, can we see the work that money is doing? Why should be people, Mr. Speaker, I can see and hear the voice of Senator of Busia competing with my voice. I don't know what is happening, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Omtata, you're interfering with the flow of thoughts of the senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for protecting me. Let the rule of law be followed, Mr. Speaker. And when we give proposals here and suggestions, Mr. Speaker, I would be one of those who really want to see the outcome of what we are doing. Today is the second day in a row when we are debating on this. And the issues we are raising, the issues Kenyans have raised, and Mr. Speaker, the proposals we are giving, we want to know whether it could be just a PR or something is going to be done to liberate this country and make sure that we have prosperity and peace moving forward. Mr. Speaker, I would say that as Kenyans and as leaders in this country, we must be responsible. Take responsibility of our actions, our ways, our...
Senator Siango, just 1 minute to wind up your thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would say that I know the Gen Z had demanded that RUTO must go. I would urge the Gen Z to give dialogue a chance if it will work. But if the president does not listen, does not change, does not implement what we are proposing here, then he must go. Thank you.
Senator Mundigi.
Thank you, Bwana Speaker. Yangu ni kuunga mkono mazungumzo ambayo inaendelea hapa katika nyumba kuu ya Senate, na kushukuru sana Bwana Speaker ambaye majority Cherioti ambaye ailileta jana ndio tuzungumzie kuhusu Kenya yetu. Tukiwa hapa tuko county 40 ambaye imeakilishwa na Senator 67. Kwa hivyo naunga mkono nikisema majority kutoka jana na siku zile zingine kidogo, ukielewa hivyo kutoka leo, miaka ambayo itakuja utakuwa ukionekana pale kwa serikali ya juu. Miaka ingine itakuja. Ya pili, Bwana Speaker, ni kupeana rambirambi zangu kwa wale vijana ambaye waliaga dunia, walikufa wakati wa maandamano ya Gen Z. Na pia Bwana Speaker, ilikuwa ni kilio kubwa sana kwa sababu familia zingine wengine walikuwa wasema hawana familia zao, hawana wazazi, pia hawana mtu yote anaweza kuwasaidia. Pia ni vijana ambaye wale waliaga dunia tuliwaona, si kusema ni wa kaunti moja, ni wa kaunti nyingi. Kwa hivyo nataka kusema nikiwa senator wa Embu County pamoja na Embu County na peana rambirambi yangu zangu nikiwa nimetoka Embu County. Bwana Speaker, ya pili nataka pia kusema ni pole sana katika kaunti zote ambacho zile zilikuwa zimekuwa na hiyo maandamano ya amani, lakini baadaye vijana wengi wetu ambaye waliweza kuwa na mikono imevunjwa, miguu imevunjika, wakapata shida nyingi sana wakati wa hiyo maandamano, kwa sababu ilikuwa nifute nikuvute. Ilifika pahali ikawa kama ni maandamano, ikawa sasa ni mambo ya wizi ya wale watu ambao waliingia. Sasa ikawa maandamano inaleta shinda ni askari na vijana wetu njenzi, na pia na wale watu walikuwa wataka kupora mali. Na hiyo mambo sana sana ilikumba kaunti ya Mombasa, kaunti ya Migori, na pia Kisumu, na pia Nakuru, na pia hapa Nairobi, na pia sana katika kaunti yangu. Kutoka siku hiyo mimi sikuweza kwenda Embu County. Naambia watu wa Embu County ni pole sana, kwa sababu yale yalitendeka Embu hayajawahi kuonekana. Kwa sababu Bwana Spika, miaka 10 sisi tumekuwa devolution ya ile pesa tumekuwa tukipokea imekuwa na shinda, kwa sababu ilikuwa matapeli wale walikuwa wakiongoza. Na wakati wa hii serikali ya Kenya Kwanza, mimi nilichaguliwa na mwananchi nikuje nimwakilishe na nikatafuta amani. Ndio kwa sababu tunasema watu wawili wawezi kutembea bila kuelewanwa, na sisi senator na governor na wale viongozi wengine tukasema tutaenda para moja. Sasa mambo ya ajabu, wakati tunaendelea kuvuvua uchumi wa Embu County, wale watu walikuwa na nia mbaya ya hiyo maneno, walitoka kona zingine nje ya county. Pia mambo ya ajabu, pali governor amejenga ofisi akarinoveti na ile pesa wakaenda wakaweka moto. Mambo ya ajabu, wale watu hawakuwa na adabu, hawakuwa na hata na heshima na kaunti ya Embu, kwa sababu hata magari ambaye ya watu wale wanafanya kazi kwa county government ikawekwa moto. Sasa tukasindwa, wale watu hawakuwa na wakati wa ile mambo ya budget ya kusema ndio au la. Hata kaunti ya Embu County hatukuona hata governor yoyote alienda kusema yes or no. Ni kwa hiyo ikaonekana ni shinda, na tukawa nawaambia ni pole sana, najua mambo tutarekebisha, lakini nataka kuambia kwa huzuni. Ile pesa tulikuwa tunatarajia ukuja itoke kutoka tarehe 1. Sasa mambo ya ajabu Bwana Spika, haitaenda kufanya kwanza kazi, itaenda kutengeneza ile ofisi. Kwa hivyo sisi watu wa Embu County tumerudi nyuma sana. Nikirundia hapo tena nikiongezea kwa Embu ya County, wale matebeli tena, wale watu walikuwa wamepanga ile mipango, walifanya makosa, wakaenda wa KRA wakaeka moto. Ile ni ile usuru yetu. Pia nataka kusema kitendo walifanya kikubwa sana katika Embu County. Ile Bwana Spika nilisema nitanyamaza, na nikasema ni kuomba. Mambo ya ajabu, walienda kwa shule inaitwa Kenyatta, shule ambaye inaitwa Kenyatta School, ambaye ni ya watoto wasiojiweza. Wengine wana macho, wengine wana unakuta ni shinda usiku ya marare wa manane wakaweka moto. Sasa nikasindwa, hii ilikuwa maandamano ama ilikuwa ni mambo ya wizi ama ilikuwa ni maandamano ya aina gani? Kwa hiyo nataka kuambia watu wa Embu County wote, tuko sub county ile, ni pole sana. Bwana Spika, ya pili ni kusema katika Isaia 1:18 inasema watu wawili Bwana Spika wawezi kutembea bila kuelewanwa. Na pahali nyingine akasema njoo tusemesane. Nataka kuambia senators, parliament, na pia jensi na watu wote na makanisa, tuweze kurekebisha nchi yetu ya Kenya kwa sababu ya ile mambo imefanyika. Na angeomba kutoka leo na jana na siku zile zingine, kila wakati yote tunataka kukumbusha viongozi wote, aidha ulipatiwa kiti na rais ama ulipatiwa na nani ama ulipata kazi. Nataka nikuambie ulikuwa na bahati kupata hiyo kazi, kwa sababu kulikuwa na watu wengi wa kufanya hiyo kazi, lakini umepata hiyo kazi kwa bahati, kwa hivyo ukishukuru Mungu. Kwa hiyo nataka kuamaanisha seneti, sisi wote na jensi na wale wengine, nikiambia jensi tumesikia kilio chenu. Bwana Spika, nataka kusema mpaka tuelewane, tukae pamoja, ndio tuweze kuvua uchumi wa Embu County. Bwana Spika, nataka kuongea mambo ya vijana wetu wale walikuwa wanagoma. Nataka kuambia wale vijana wetu wale wa university, wa secondary school na kila kona zote, tunajua wako na elimu ya kutosha, na kufanya kazi yote katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Nataka kumuomba tu mguswe na Mungu ambaye ni Mungu wa Ibrahimu, wa Isaka, wa Yakobo. Tunaamini ni Mungu mmoja. Msikumbali kurudi hapo tena, na serikali president wetu ambaye tumesikia akizungumza, Bwana Spika, akisema anataka kufuata hiyo mambo ya kuzungumza, kwa sababu hiyo mambo ilikuwa zungumzwa mambo ya maneno wakati kulikuwa na mambo ya kule Nyahururu, ati mpaka asikie mambo kama nyuki ikitoka nje inafaa irundi kwa msinga wa papa. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, naunga mkono rais wetu wa Kenya ambaye ni William Samuel Ruto, na pia na deputy wake ambaye ni Rigathi Gachagua, wakae chini wasungumuze, na pia waongee na viongozi wote, ndio tuweze kuona vile tutasaidia nchi yetu, njia economy katika Kenya. Ya pili, Bwana Spika, mambo mingi tumesema, mambo ya kukaa pamoja, mambo ya kutafuta, na ndio tufike hapo. Nataka niongee mambo ya kazi. Sisi tukuwa maseneta mpaka tufanye kazi ile nafaa. Saa ingine tuweza kupigana hapa kwa mdomo, lakini siku ya leo nataka kuambia Kenya, tuko maseneta 67 ambaye tunaenda safari moja. Hakuna mambo ya azimio na hakuna mambo ya Kenya kwanza, tunasema Mungu mbele. Nataka kusema mambo ingine mpaka tufikirie tuko maseneta. Tunaweza kupigana tukisema sasa nataka niseme agenda ya Gen Z. Agenda ile nilipata kidogo ni mbili, ile kubwa sana. Mambo ya kusema wakiulizwa kwa nini mnafanya hivi, hata nataka nimwambie sisi hatutaki kuoa, hatutaki kuolewa. Kwa nini? Kwa sababu sisi tumetaabika, sisi tumesoma, tuko na digrii 5, tuko na digrii 10, tuko na digrii 1, na tumekaa miaka 5 na mwaka moja na miaka 2. Na mambo ya ajabu hatunjawahi kupata kazi, kwa hivyo hatutaweza kufanya hiyo kazi. Nataka niambie watu wa Kenya, mahali tumefika. Unakumbuka nikisema wale watu wamekufa wengi sana, ni vijana wetu. Mambo ya kuhuzunisha, Bwana Spika, ukikumbuka wakati watoto wa Misri walikuwa toka Misri, kitu ya kwanza ni vijana wote walienda, wale walikuwa wamezaliwa kwanza waliuawa. Nataka niambie maseneta na wale wengine, Bwana Spika, ati mambo hiyo imefanyika ni kitu ambaye iko na masosi, kwa sababu nikitema, Bwana Spika, vijana wetu wakikufa, wasichana wetu wataolewa na nani? Wakimalizwa ama wakijimaliza na dawa za kulevya na ile vitu vingine. Pia hata kukitokea mambo ya nchi ya Kenya na nchi zile zingine, itakuanji Kenya tutashindwa kwa vita. Kwa hivyo nataka niseme, jameni, tunataka maombi na tunataka tuende pamoja juu ya kutafuta mambo ya kuelewanwa na mambo ya dialogue, hata kama namna gani. Kila mtu yote, hakuna Mungu anjui Mungu. Tunataka tukae pamoja, Bwana Spika, tusemesane mambo ya kusaidia yule vijana wetu. Tumesema mambo ya kwanza ilikuwa ni mambo ya kuoa. Mambo ya pili ile kuwa kubwa sana ni mambo ya kusema hakuna kazi katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Kuko tukitaka vizuri, na kwa sababu rais wetu na wale wengine wote wamekubali kukaa chini, na rais ameapa kusema ako tayari kusikiza mtu yote. Kwa hiyo njenzi na muomba msikubali kwenda kwa barabara tena, na kilio yenu imesikika katika mbinguni na katika hapa dunia Kenya. Ya pili nikisema, Bwana Spika, mambo ya kuelewanwa. Tukielewanwa, tukifanya mambo ya kuangalia hawa njenzi watapata kazi namna gani. Ni mambo mingi tumeongea hapa katika hii Senate nyumba kuu, ambaye hatunjatoa mambo vile tutafanya. Wengine wasema watu wavutwe kazi, wengine wafanywe nini. Mimi hiyo siungi mkono. Ile inaweza, kwa sababu unaweza kuvuta kazi mtu na pia hakuna mambo ya kuangalia kazi namna gani, hata ukimbakia na watu 5. Kuna watu wengine wambaya, hata kama katika Biblia kulikuwa na watu kama Judas na alikuwa peke yake na akaharibu mpaka ikalete shinda katika ulimwengu. Sasa nataka kusema, Bwana Spika, tukitaka vizuri mpaka tuanje kazi kwa wizara ya ambaye ni ya CDF, ambaye kila constituency iko na pesa nyingi. Tuweze kuangalia, kuna vijana wanataka kufanya kazi katika masinani, wanavaa kama kazi ya kujenga, ile kutumia ile pesa, na pia hawana pesa ya kufanya kazi. Tungeomba serikali ya Kenya kwanza, wale njenzi kutoka sasa, waheshimiwa wote katika Kenya mzima waweze kuifanywe yaangaliwe kuonekane ile asilimia 30 ambayo inasema Gen Z ama vijana na wasiojiweza ama hiyo kitu wanapata, na kama wapati waweze kupata. Hiyo ni kitu ya kwanza ya kuangalia kazi ya hawa Gen Z. Kitu ya pili, Bwana Spika, tukitaka kuwasaidia vijana yetu katika county, tuko county 47 na tuko na wizara 10 na siko na mambo mingi. Bwana Spika, ningeomba magavana wote waangaliwe vile itakuwa na mambo vile wamekuwa akifanya kazi. Mtu yote kwa county na kama kazi yake imesembea, watu waweze kupelekwa, wengine wale wameimba pesa wafanyikazi wapelekwa kotini, na pia wale wengine wavutwe kazi, ndio watoto wetu waweze kufanya zile kazi, kwa sababu wako na usunja na uelevu wa kisasa ya kufanya kazi. Pia tukitafuta kazi nyingine ya tatu katika national government, tumesikia rais wetu mpenda kila mtu wote na amekubali kunyenyekea mambo ya NEA, National Employment Authority. Tunamuomba aendelee kuweka hiyo mkazo, ndio tuonekane vijana wetu. Kama tunajua mimi ni committee member walipa, tukianza miaka 2 imeisha, kulikuwa na shinda kule ambayo vijana wetu walikuwa naenda, walikuwa na shinda nyingi, lakini sasa serikali imetenga hiyo department na itakuwa na mambo zake. Ningeomba rais wetu, watoto wengi wanasema wana passport, watoto wetu wanasema wana kitambulisho, watoto wote kuonekane kama ile pesa imetengwa ya CDF ikatwe kidogo, ndio iweze kupatia watoto passport, kwa sababu wanasema wana pesa, na ikatwe kidogo waweze kupata vitu zote ambazo itaonyesha hata kupimwa na hata kila kitu, ndio hao watoto tuweze kuona within miezi kidogo kama watakuwa wakienda huko nje. Bwana Spika, naunga mkono hii kitu. Ningeomba tukitafuta kazi kwa watu wetu, ningeomba ministry, tuko na wizara 21 ya serikali, ifanye upelelezi ionekane kutoka huko juu na mpaka chini, kazi namna gani kutoka chini mpaka juu, ionekane kazi iko namna gani, na kama mtu amesembea kazini aweze kutimuliwa, na wale wengine wamepora mali ya watu waweze kupelekwa kotini, ndio sasa kuwe nafasi ya hawa Gen Z wafanye kazi. Bwana Spika, nataka kusema ukweli, huwezi kusafisha kikombe ndani na nje imeharibika, iko na uchafu. Ningetaka kusema katika seneta hii, seneta 67, tunavaa tusiweze kuwa tunaonyesha kidole kwa mbunge, kwa wale cabinet secretary, kwa president, kwa deputy, kwa wale wengine. Kitu ya kwanza, Bwana Spika, ningeomba tuanze kwa hii seneti ya Kenya ambayo iko seneta 67, tuko county 47. Nataka kusema hivi, nataka niulize sisi kwa roho zetu, wakati tulisauliwa tukiwa maseneta, tuliletwa hapa tuwe tukiangalia vile tunafanya kazi. Tuko na komiti 10, wengine komiti zingine, Bwana Spika, ni watu 9 komiti, na wengine hawajaonekana. Unavaa ujiulize uletwa hapa kufanya nini? Kutoka Jumatatu, nataka kuambia Gen Z, seneta wote wanavaa kutoka Jumanne, Jumatano na Alhamisi wanavaa wewe kazi. Nataka makaunti muulize hawa magavana na maseneta wanaangalianga kazi namna gani. Kwa hivyo nataka sinda sote tuanze hapo, na vitu zingine tunafanya kaunti namna gani, ndio tuweze kuenda kwa wale wengine. Pia ukienda ile nyumba ya MPs unakuta mara mingi mtu anaonekana wakati wa mwisho ndio akuja kuvoti. Muulize hawa watu wanafanya kazi gani. Kwa hiyo nataka kusema mambo ya kusemana pamoja, naunga mkono kwa hii maneno, na ninajua tukiweka Mungu mbele, Bwana Spika, mambo ya Kenya tutaenda mbele, na hapo economy ama mambo yote utakuta hiyo kazi ikipatikana, uzuri ya county na uzuri ya national government, na pia mandeni tuko naye katika Kenya hii tutamaliza na serikali ya Kenya kwanza, ama serikali ya Kenya itakaa vizuri kwa hii kipindi. Kwa hivyo sisi tuungane pamoja, tusiwe watu wa kuonyeshana kidole, ni wewe, ni huyu, mpaka tusemesane. Na nikimalizia, Bwana Spika, nataka nikumbushe serikali ya Kenya Kwanza na wale wengine wote na Kenya mzima na department zile zingine kutimulia watu ama cabinet secretary MPS haitasaidia. Ile kitu ya kwanza ni kuangalia ule mtu afanye kazi aweze kutimulia. Unaweza kuacha watu wawili na kama kazi haiangaliwe hakuna kitu watafanya. Kwa hiyo Bwana Speaker, ningeomba nikimaliza ambaye kuseme sana, nataka nikimaliza nataka nikumbushe tena watu wa Kenya mambo ya kusema Isaia. Watoto wa Misri, wa Israeli, wakati walitoka Misri, walifika pahali wakaanza kupigana, kuletania sinda ni wewe, mpaka wakati kafika na ndio Isaia akasema njooni nyote tusemesane. Sasa ni wakati wa Kenya, makanisa, seneti na ngurubu zote na JNC tuungane pamoja kama watu wa Kenya tuweze kusaidia Mkenya, kwa sababu nataka kuambia JNC, Kenya ni ya mtu mzee, ni ya mdogo, ni ya kila kitu. Na ninataka kuhakikishia JNC, hii Kenya ni yenyu. Ukiangalia sisi miaka ile iko sisi tunaondoka, kwa hiyo nataka mtushikilie na nyinyi mfanye kazi vizuri ndio muweze kulete matunda na kutengeneza economy ya counties na pia economy ya Kenya mzima. Pia hata mambo ya agriculture. Kule kuna agriculture, kuna agriculture, kuna trendi, kuna cooperative. Pia hizo department, hiyo cabinet secretary wafanye pamoja. Ndio pia county government ipatiane every county power ya manji, ndio wapate ile kazi ikipeano kule, kusimekane watu wakubwa wase wasiende kwa ile na kutafuta masamba. Kila njensi wale wako na mavikira ya kulima na pia waweze kulima, ndio hiyo masao yao iweze cooperative iwapatie pesa walime, na pia trendi itapute soko huko inji ya ngambo. Kwa hiyo Bwana Speaker, mimi naunga mkono. Nikimalizia nataka kuhakikishia JNC kilio yenu Mungu ameisikia na serikali na Kenya hiyo kilio imesikika. Nikimalizia Bwana Speaker, hiyo kitu yote ikifanyika utakuta economy ya kaunti zetu 47 hatutapigana na economy ya Kenya itaendelea vizuri na Kenya itasimama. Kwa hivyo Bwana Speaker, nikiwa senator wa Embu County naunga hiyo mazungumzo tuweze kutembea pamoja. Ni mimi senator wa Embu County ambaye ni Daktari Alexander Munyi Mundigi ambaye ni deputy party leader wa Democratic in Kenya Kwanza. Asante Bwana Speaker, naunga mkono. Asante. Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to join my colleagues in supporting this particular motion. I believe it is long overdue, but I think we are there. Mr. Speaker, I must take this opportunity to give my condolences to the families that have lost their dear ones. We have lost great leaders. Some people say youths are future leaders. They are not future leaders. From what happened last week, they are leaders of today, Mr. Speaker. I must accept that. Secondly, I wish to wish well those who are in hospitals to have quick recoveries. Mr. Speaker, I remember yesterday when we had a brief meeting. I asked the meeting, what is the end result of this particular debate? And I remember, having been around for a while, we will normally debate day in, day out, but the result is zero. And I hope this one is not going to be zero. Mr. Speaker, what we have seen, it must have taught us lesson that we need to learn from the happenings in this country, both national and the county level. Mr. Speaker, I wish to congratulate the young boys and girls who have actually volunteered, who have sacrificed their lives, their time to put things right. They are actually great leaders, Mr. Speaker, according to me. Mr. Speaker, I remember there were several challenges on that particular Tuesday where people were running for their lives. I have watched a very serious young girl on a YouTube last evening where she was actually confronting a police officer and telling him, do whatever I want to do, but I'm here for the right of Kenyans, I'm here for my right. She must be a hero, and I hope her name is called Shakila. She's a great leader and she's a hero in this country. Congratulations, Shakila, though I don't know you. And the rest of young boys and girls who have volunteered. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I must congratulate the President of this country for having listened to these young boys and girls. If he actually didn't return back that particular bill to the National Assembly, we would have been in a different situation in this country today. I think, Mr. Speaker, we need to look at our neighbors. South Sudan, North Sudan, Somalia. Those are the countries with very few tribes. But in Kenya, we have 45 tribes. If for any reason that we turn against each other, I'm telling you, we'll finish each other within a week or even less. But may God forbid that, Mr. Speaker, and that is the reason why we should actually congratulate and be happy for whatever has happened. And the head of state actually agreed to listen to us and also to the youths of this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the happenings, I believe we must do a lot of consultation whenever we make a decision. Because if we don't consult each other, if we make decisions unilaterally without consulting, then we'll see what happens from what happened on Tuesday and the years to come, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, those youths who are actually on the road as a result of frustration, depression, they are our kids, Mr. Speaker. Most of them, especially in our counties, you will see they are into drugs. Mr. Speaker, in Kenya today, if you look for a job, employment, there are kids with even PhD. There are kids with masters. There are kids with actually the first degrees. Mr. Speaker, unless you pay certain token, you will not get a job in government offices. And I think those ministries need to be overhauled. We need to tell each other the truth, Mr. Speaker. There is no merit in actually one getting a job. That's why those kids were actually frustrated and annoyed with us leaders. Mr. Speaker, you look at the budget of this country. When you look at the budget, it is brought to the House, both National Assembly and the Senate. We pass those budgets. The 85 that is left at the national level, Mr. Speaker, you don't know how it is spent. You don't know how it is implemented, even the projects that are there. You are either politically correct or not, Mr. Speaker. You are either influential or not. You either have a population or not, Mr. Speaker. Everything is actually looking at the future of politics of this country. Where are we heading as a country? Because if I don't support the government of the day, automatically I will not get development. That is the position in this country, and we need to correct that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when the current government leadership or executive came into office, I visited several offices to find out the kind of projects that are going to be implemented in my county. I went to a certain office and I was told the project in this area is complete 100%. And I asked the PS or the cabinet secretary, are you serious when you are saying this project is 100% complete? And I was there the other day. Mr. Speaker, you can imagine a project that is done 40%. What is in a government office is 100% complete. In certain instances, those projects are not even there. So what I'm saying here, Mr. Speaker, is that we need to look at the way we are carrying out ourselves and actually even sharing the national cake. Those who are at the national level, you need to go down and see what is happening or how those projects are being implemented. And again, how those projects are actually benefiting the areas and the communities that are intended to be supported. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me come back to this House. I've been around for a while. I was in the first Senate. I was in the second Senate. But the current happenings, we must call a spade a spade. You can actually bring a statement to this House. It takes 6 months for a committee to look at it and give you feedback. Mr. Speaker, you can imagine I'm being confronted even in certain committees. Is it really relevant for you to bring this statement to this committee? When the Speaker on the floor of the House has referred a statement to a committee, I'm being challenged in the committee. A member of committee or secretariat calls my county and tells the governor, what is wrong with your senator? She's always bringing statement to our committee. Mr. Speaker, I think when we correct others, we should also correct ourselves. We should correct ourselves. There is a lot of problem within our committees. Things are not done properly. I can enumerate committees where I have challenges in my counties. Up to now, Mr. Speaker, nobody has responded to those statements. And I don't want to embarrass the committees that I have statements before them. Sometimes you can imagine you are just send the response and nobody bothers how to deal with that particular statement. I wish we could go back to where we started in the first Senate, where responses for those statements are brought back to the House so that everybody can listen and understand those statements and even ask further questions, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the reason why I am telling this House or ourselves, when we actually point fingers to other individuals or other institutions, we also have challenges here. We must actually correct ourselves. Mr. Speaker, going back to the counties, I have sat in the committees of the House from 2013 up to date. Mr. Speaker, when we are talking of national government, we should also talk about county government. Mr. Speaker, the budget we fight for here, Mr. Speaker, when it goes to the county, nobody wants you to talk about it. Nobody says senators have fought for this budget, so we should listen to them. Nobody understands the role of senators is not to carry out development, but to carry out oversight, Mr. Speaker. And that has to be made clear. Because you will see that you are bashed by governors also and members of parliament. I have brought this road. I have done ABCD. What has Senator done for you? Those are the issues we need to ask ourselves. How are we going to be felt as senators? I've seen people from yesterday's debate bashing Senate. Senate should be scrapped. Those debates we have had. But I think we must make a reality why we exist as a Senate, Mr. Speaker. I sit in Public Accounts Committee where, Mr. Speaker, you will see that all the counties have gone above the 13% ceiling of employment. Every governor comes in, he will recruit 200, 300, 1,000, and nobody is questioning, Mr. Speaker. Development is not taking place, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for example, my county, 50% of the budget in the last financial year, this actually finished financial year, has not been spent. When you have pending bills in the counties, People are suffering. They have supplied counties. You go to the controller of budget, requisition is made, Mr. Speaker. That requisition comes with the name of Fatuma Dulo. But when it goes to CRF, is another person who is paid. Maybe Senator Kajwang is the one paid. These things are happening, Mr. Speaker. Do you want to challenge me?
Proceed, Senator. Don't be
Mr. Speaker, it's happening in the eyes of COB, it is happening in the eyes of Treasury. Nobody is bothering. Those who have supplied, Mr. Speaker, are suffering. Those who are owed pending bills, they are not paid. I remember 2019, there was a decision made by this House to stop actually budget going to the counties until they clear pending bills. And they all rushed, Mr. Speaker, to clear those pending bills. And I think that decision has to be made also, maybe next financial year, so that Kenyans can get their money and also service is delivered to Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, if I may look at my county, yesterday I moved a motion to stop budget going to Isiolo County. I was not a fool when I actually drafted that motion. We have instances, I remember 2019 or even 2015, I think Senator Khalwale also tried one time. When the governors refused to appear before Public Accounts Committee.
Majority Leader, you may consult, but keep it on the down low. Proceed, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, we push governments to allocate budget to counties. And when you summon a governor to the committee of the Senate, he will tell you, I am not answerable to anybody. I am not actually obligated to respond to anybody. It's in public domain. We went as a Senate committee to Isiolo. The end result is we all were abused in public. All of us. And actually some of the senators who came there, why can't you oversight Homa Bay? I remember Senator Kajwang being told, instead of coming to Isiolo. We have a right as senators to go to any county. I thought I have 20 minutes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I brought a statement on the floor of the House regarding a morgue. Up to date, that morgue is not operational. The governor refused to appear before Health Committee. Mr. Speaker, after the committee has issued a warrant of arrest to order to DPP and IG, the governor rushes to get a court order to stop committee of the House operating. And we need a ruling from you, Mr. Speaker. I have never seen where a governor can stop decision of particular committee. We had a P committee where actually Senator Olekina was abused in a committee. And banging of the tables happened. What kind of respect do we have? There are no structures in those counties, Mr. Speaker. I'm not talking about Isiolo only. If you look at the budget forums are not working. Supplementaries are carried. Members of public don't know. Mr. Speaker, I think we need to have a serious discussion as far as the counties are concerned. Mr. Speaker, if I am allowed, of course the law allows 50% to stoppage. We must actually have a lesson learned by certain counties that are disrespecting this particular house. There must be consequences. Because if we don't have consequences, like some guys in Isiolo Senate, where will Senate take us? We will come, listen to them, we take photos with them, see them outside the tent. That is the end of it. That is the story that is there in the counties, Mr. Speaker. we must be held accountable, Mr. Speaker. For example, Mr. Speaker, a county that is getting a budget of 5.2 million, it's recruiting 32 chief officers. 32 chief officers. And the governor says, nobody will ask me. He has over 20 advisors when the law allows only 3. 20. Every department has advisor. So what is the use of having laws in this country? It has no meaning. And I can see the kind of frustrations that these young boys and girls are going through. The demonstration we had here was similarly in my county, Isiolo. We lost some young boys and girls. Poleni sana. Mr. Speaker, after the demonstration, some youths are hired to confront the peaceful demonstration that were done by Gen Zs. Can you imagine a governor rushing and tweeting and saying, Fatuma wanted to ban the county office? Why would I ban county office? Can I assist him to ban evidence where he has misappropriated funding? Why would I, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of challenges. If this debate that we are carrying out today will solve the kind of problems we have, both nationally and at the county level, Mr. Speaker, then we have something to smile. And I will advise Gen Zs, yes, you have made noise. Yes, you have been heard. Put your structures in place to hold everybody accountable. And I must congratulate you today, we didn't have demonstration. Congratulations. But come together and make sure that whatever you have actually listed down have been implemented. Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of challenges. I don't see why we should even allocate money to counties. Our mothers today are carrying drums of water on their backs when we have budgets, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Dulo, 2 minutes to wind up your thoughts.
Mr. Speaker, most of the kids in my county, they're actually learning under trees. What happens when it rains? They don't go to school, Mr. Speaker. Hospitals, there are no dispensaries that are operating, no drugs, no ambulances. Our mothers are dying on those rough roads trying to get service delivery as far as health is concerned, Mr. Speaker. So let me urge this House, whatever discussions we're having here, we must have a solution to it. And as far as actually sending the budget to Isiolo County, until the governor of Isiolo accepts and respects the role of the Senate, and I think any other county, we should actually not release more than 50% of the budget for the benefit of staff going to those counties, because we deserve that respect as a Senate, and also hold those governors accountable, because what we are sending them is not actually realized. Imagine, Governor, Treasury of Isiolo is operated in Nairobi. Procurement is operated in Nairobi. And nobody is bothered. And people here in this House, they are saying, why is Senator Dulo so annoyed with Isiolo County? I have a reason. I feel the pain of my people. That's why they have elected me to this House. Mr. Speaker, let's put our acts together. This country we all belong to. There are so many people who are yearning to come and settle in Kenya. We don't have another country. Can we sit down, do proper consultation, and ensure that our country has moved forward? I thank you.
Senator Mofire.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me start by thanking the brains behind this motion, the leadership of this House from both divide, including Senator Wambua, who really came up with this idea of having to address the affairs of this nation after having some few instances in the last 2 weeks or so. Honourable Speaker, before I give my speech, I would want to dedicate my soul and spirit to the young ones who lost their lives, to the parents, to the relatives, and the entire family, because it is the record that this country lost lives in the last few years, in a few days, out of the protests that were brought by our sons and daughters. Honourable Speaker, I want to convey my gratitude and greetings from Tharaka-Nithi to the majority leader of this House, to Senior Kalwale, to Sifuna, because I've received several messages, even to you, Honourable Speaker, because I've received several messages and calls from people from Tharaka-Nithi, congratulating each one of you for fighting it very necessary to make sure that we have a counter address, because the Senate now is a slave for this country. We have been celebrated across the board, and people are saying this is the Senate that we really voted for as per the Constitution. We have really redeemed ourselves, and we have restored our sanity as a House. Honourable Speaker, I belong to Kenya Kwanza government, having been elected Senator for Tharaka-Nithi by majority votes in the last elections. Honourable Speaker, I'm happy that this House has disregarded party affiliations and decided to confront issues without having to say you come from Kenya Kwanza or azimio for that matter. And that is patriotism, Honourable Speaker. That is being patriotic, because as quite a number of speakers have just said, we do not have any other country other than Kenya. Honourable Speaker, do you protect me from the leadership? I can see Medhu is making a lot of noise, maybe from some quarters, Honourable Speaker.
Order, Senator for Laikipia. Resume your seat. Proceed, Senator Mofu.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, for that. You know, Honourable Speaker, this government came into being through some very common phrases. I remember we went around the country, and our common phrase was bottom up, the hustlers. That's captioned the likes of Mama Mbogas, the border borders, the Mokokoteni, the wheelbarrow pushers, and any other common person for that matter. And we rode on that spirit, and we were voted enormously for those phrases. Honourable Speaker, I remember the vows and the promises that we made. Within 100 days, we shall have done this and that. Within 3 months, we shall have done this and that. But I'm very sure somebody who is watching me from Tharaka-Nithi, from Ramu, from any part of this country, would want to agree with me. We have not been very faithful to those vows and promises. We might have been distracted maybe by some economic issues or policies, but that's not, and that is not and will not be the expectations of the nation. It could be too early, but of course the promises were in the next 100 days, in the next 3 months, we shall have this and that and that. Honourable Speaker, we made some confessions. We made some promises that this government will be comprised of Mama Mbogas, the young people, border, and it was a common phrase, not exactly for the president, for anybody. That was the talk of Kenya Kwanza. Honourable Speaker, what we have seen in return is total contrast to what the promises were. The boys that are routing today in the streets, in the campaigns, we expected them to be in possessions. But in the return, Honorable Speaker, we have witnessed and we have seen some recycled corrupt faces in this government. Those people with indented history of corruption, some serious moral practices here and there, those are the people who are running the government. We have seen people carrying sacks of money in functions in Harambes, out of cronyism, out of tribalism. And it's time, Honorable Speaker, I happen to serve in the Committee of National Cohesion and Equal Opportunities, where my senior Senator Chuta chairs. It is very saddening, Honorable Speaker, to find that in this country, 2 tribes carry 3/4 of the entire public service or the workforce at the expense of other tribes. So one would want to ask, why are other Kenyans taking their kids to school? So those are some of the lamentations, Honorable Speaker, that we are seeing in the streets. And I'm happy that the President was able to listen to some of those grievances. And it is important also, Honorable Speaker, to note that even the budget is skewed to favor some cronies, some royalists. You find some members of parliament allocating them some billions of money in their constituencies for development. This one, Honorable Speaker, has segregated, has made some parts of this country look like they are not in this country. I come from Tharaka County, Honorable Speaker, and there are constituencies for that matter. And I know exactly what I'm saying. So, Honorable Speaker, Kenyans put this government in power with great expectations and remained so that their lives maybe could remain better. But of course, the intentions could have been very good. But of course, Honorable Speaker, up to now, those of us who frequent their localities every weekend, you bear me witness that we face a lot of problems with our mothers, with our fathers, with our common rural folk, seeking for school fees, seeking for medication, seeking for any sort of assistance from those who are elected. It is not something, Honorable Speaker, that we can manage. This one displays some serious levels of inequality in the society. This is not Kenyans really expected once when they went into elections. Honorable Speaker, we chose, after forming the government, we chose to reward the friends and loyalties instead of competence in some cases, Honorable Speaker. That is why here we have had some confessions from some prosecutors of this motion that there is a committee in agriculture. We sat down, prosecuted our case, and up to now, some of those non-corporates are still in office. This one, Honorable Speaker, is seriously eroding the confidence of the Kenyan people. Because, Honorable Speaker, there is no way Kenyans would want to be shuffled by a person who is dented and corrupt for that matter. And it's not only agriculture, Honorable Speaker. We have so many seen cases in this country where we do not have a serious resolve maybe to fight corruption. We have created 2 levels of living in this country. We have the extreme people who have a lot of money. The haves, they don't even know where to take that money. They have bought so many things. They have bought choppers. They are going around the country with so much money. I would want even to recite what Honorable Garwari said. They are Sky team. They are over. Somebody would take a chopper from Nairobi to Thika. A 20 minutes drive. Because money is there. And I'm very sure this money belongs to Kenyans, whom we saw the other day demonstrating in the streets. So this hunger, Honorable Speaker, has been building in this country for the last maybe so many years. But I'm happy, Honorable Speaker, that our young people woke up from both levels of psychopathy, the hypocrisy, and the fallacy, that we are supposed to do exactly what people sent us here to do. Honorable Speaker, The government overlooked quite a number of cancerous aspects in our nation, such as corruption, tribalism, and impunity. Honourable Speaker, the other day, not even the other day, today, Honourable Speaker, in Kenya today, you can do anything as far as you are politically correct. You can walk and do anything that is supposed to be done, including crime. You can kill. We have seen even some of us shooting people dead and then go scot-free because you belong to this section of the government. So I think, Honourable Speaker, it is the high time we restore and install and make sure that we are equal before the law. And some of those things, Honourable Speaker, is why we're having our youth go to the streets and make some serious demonstrations. Honourable Speaker, even the budget, as the Judge said, is made in favor of some people who are connected to the system. Honourable Speaker, we have every right to thank our young generations for awakening us from the deep shame of hypocrisy, psychopathy, and fallacy. Honourable Speaker, I'm happy that this government found it necessary, maybe to halt the signing of the finance bill, which in the Kenyan understanding was not favorite to the voters. So, Honourable Speaker, I want to end up by saying that Senate, as it is claimed, is in glory, and I'm very sure this is the trend we are supposed to embrace as a House. Maybe in the future, this is the hope of this country, and the Kenyans are looking upon us to give solutions and directions. Honourable Speaker, I strongly support the motion, and I hope the recommendations that you are going to make are not just going to die, just like so many other things that we have been able to prosecute, and they have never seen the light of the day. So these recommendations that we are going to make, Honourable Speaker, I would request the leadership of this House and the entire House to make sure that we implement what we agree, and I'm very sure as a House, as a Senate, we are going to be the symbol of unity for this country. I support.
Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion and to congratulate the Leader of Majority and Leader of Minority for bringing a bipartisan motion of this nature. Indeed, this is the right time to discuss the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, let me first start by sending my condolences and the delegation that I lead to the 39 families whose children died in the last 1 week. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has told us that 36 were injured, 627 young people were arrested, and 32 have disappeared. Mr. Speaker, disappearances and extrajudicial killings have returned to this country, despite the promises that were made during the campaigns. I also wish to sympathize with the traders who have lost their property across the nation. Mr. Speaker, even though not related, allow me to take this opportunity to send my condolences also to the family of the late Joe Barage Wanjui. Those who know Joe Wanjui, he was a chancellor at the University of Nairobi. He is a foremost businessman in this country. And I send condolences because, Mr. Speaker, Joe Wanjui gave me an opportunity to join the financial services world. When I left the university, he never cared about my last name. He cared about my ability to serve. And Mr. Speaker, may his soul rest in peace, and we shall remember his sophisticated humility, which I have struggled to emulate. Mr. Speaker, last week when I was in church, the young people told me when I come to this house, I must read out Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. The Gen Zs are not fighting against flesh and blood. Theirs is a fight against principalities and powers, rulers of darkness and wickedness in high places. Gen Zs don't want to kill anybody, even though we are killing them. We have snipers in this building to kill our young people. They are not fighting flesh and blood, Mr. Speaker. It is about wickedness in high places, parliament, state house, city hall, governor's premises, across the nation. It is wickedness in high places that the Gen Zs are fighting against. It was not even the finance bill, Mr. Speaker, that was the problem. The finance bill was a catalyst. All this started when we decided to force on Kenyans a housing law. In fact, it's a good thing that those young people came to parliament, because we are the ones who passed a housing law and told the young people they can go to hell if they want. We are the ones who passed a health law, which nobody understands today. Mr. Speaker, those people who work for the National Health Insurance Fund, they have no certainty. They don't know whether they have a job. Leave alone a job, they don't even know whether they have a health cover. And yet they work for the National Health Insurance Fund. It was this parliament that brought about that kind of wickedness, that many of our people today do not have health cover. Today, children in schools do not have health cover, something that we thought would be a constitutional guarantee. It was taken away, and this parliament kept quiet about it. Mr. Speaker, the Gen Zs are fighting about the neo-colonialism that we are seeing today. When Kenyans are complaining about their government, the first person to respond to us is the American ambassador in PowerPoint presentations, telling us how our elections are free and fair, telling us how our president has been sent from God, and telling us that we are making the right decisions, that we should persevere. Gen Zs are tired of that neo-colonialism and double standards. Someone told to me that if those protests were about the rights of persons of the LGBTQ community, Mr. Speaker, and 39 people were dead, the Western world would have frozen aid, they would have frozen external assistance to Kenya. Are the lives of gays and lesbians more important than the lives of the 39 that we have talked about? We saw what happened in our neighboring country, Uganda. They came up with laws that limited the rights and freedoms of persons of that orientation. And Uganda has now been denied funding. The Speaker of the Assembly in Uganda is being hounded out of office. She cannot even travel, Mr. Speaker. We do not want the double standards of neo-colonialists, and we pray that the Gen Zs in America will do the right thing. Mr. Speaker, the arrogance that we have displayed as a leadership, the tribalism that we have been expressing and calling it shareholding. Shareholding is nothing when it comes to national politics. It is pure tribalism. It is ethnic jingoism. It is ethnic chauvinism. Mr. Speaker, we are talking here with Senator Omtata, asking ourselves, why do you need a voter's card when you already have a national ID? And that has been the system in this country, to disenfranchise certain parts of this country. We have been around through electoral processes, and we know that the registration of voters is a first step for rigging of elections. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the majority and minority leaders that in that motion, that we should push to ensure that in this country, once you have a national ID card, then you can automatically become a voter. Because I've heard the arrogant politicians, those who voted yes to the finance bill last week, saying that Gen Zs will not take them anywhere because, after all, they are not registered as voters. Once you are a citizen, you've got a right to vote. And we should not introduce additional bureaucracies in the name of registration of voters. The last time we did that exercise, this country spent 7 billion Kenya shillings on biometric voter registration equipment. Those are the areas where we could make savings. If we could take that 7 billion that I am sure that the IBC is going to ask for another round of voter registration, that amount of money can take care of the doctors, can take care of the junior secondary school teachers. Mr. Speaker, we have annoyed the Gen Zs by our fake religious fervor. The religious fundamentalism that is in this country, Mr. Speaker, where we go to churches, and then we say that the persons we vanquished are children of a lesser God, that the victors are the ones who pray to the true God. Today, Gen Zs have told us that the voice of the youth is a voice of God. Mr. Speaker, I've reflected and I've looked at what Wole Soyinka wrote. I think it was Soyinka who wrote The Trouble with Nigeria. And Soyinka said, it was Chinua Achebe. It was Achebe who did the Trouble with Nigeria. He said, there is no problem with the Nigerian land, the Nigerian soil, the Nigerian air, the Nigerian water, the Nigerian seas and lakes. The trouble with Nigeria, as is the trouble with Kenya, is the failure of leadership. It is a cult of mediocrity. It is indiscipline and it is corruption. Mr. Speaker, ever since Achebe made those very, very interesting remarks more than 20, 30 years ago, Kenya has not learned a lesson. I am so happy about this revolution that our young people have brought upon us, because it is going to change the architecture of our politics. Before, the people who mattered were the leaders and owners of parties. Today, the true bosses are the youngsters, the Gen Zs, our brothers and sisters, our sons and daughters. Mr. Speaker, I heard the president say that he wants to set up certain committees to go around the country to find out what the youth want. But why do you ask for a job when you don't know what the people who elected you want, Mr. Speaker? And sometimes we can propose a lot of things, and yet the solutions lie here in this Constitution. We have a chapter or an article, Article 55 of the Constitution, which talks about specific application of rights with respect to youth. And so instead of the president wasting taxpayers' money with another BBI like SACAS, I invite the president to read Article 55. That says the state shall take measures, including affirmative action programs, to ensure that the youth access relevant education and training, have opportunities to associate, be represented, and to participate in political, social, economic, and other spheres of life, that the youth can access employment, and that they are protected from harmful cultural practices and exploitation. You don't need a committee to go around the country to come and tell you that, because the framers of our Constitution already put it there. What do the Gen Z want, Mr. Speaker? The Gen Z wants us to be faithful to this Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights, the rights and fundamental freedoms in this Constitution, which belong to each individual and are not granted by the state. And the responsibility of the state, as far as the rights are concerned, is to observe, to respect, protect, promote, and to fulfill the realization of those rights. Why do you have to set up committees and dialogue teams? And yet, in the Constitution, it says every Kenyan has got a right to life. That right to life is not abortion. Those boys who are felled by snipers outside this parliament, we have violated their right to life. The young people want equality and freedom from discrimination. That is an obligation of the state in this Constitution. It should not matter whether you are chariot, whether you are karaoke, for you to access jobs. The other day, I'm watching on TV as leadership of KEFIS, Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Scheme, are talking about a new system that they've launched. The first person to speak sounds like he comes from Meru. The second person to speak sounds like he comes from Meru. The third one to speak sounds like he comes from Meru. The Minister for Agriculture is a former senator for Meru. It should not matter where you come from, because I don't think that Plant Health Inspectorate Services, the expertise only resides in a certain part of the country. But that has been duplicated in each and every ministry. You go to the ICT ministry, everyone perhaps is Otieno, Onyango, Odongo. You go to another ministry of roads, everyone is chariot.
Fomeru, Senator Kajwang just yield. Senator Fomeru, we agreed before, just take a seat, just take a seat. We agreed before, I'm talking Senator Kathuri. We agreed as a ground rule that there shall be no points of order. Now, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. And honorable senators, to get a boil to heal, you don't caress it. If you need the boil to heal, you must squeeze and squeeze it really hard. Now, that process of squeezing is pretty painful. But if we need to get out of this place where we are, if we need to get out of the place we are, we just have to squeeze this boil. So, Senator Kathuri, I will give you an opportunity. I will give you an opportunity where you're going to lay your case and nobody is going to raise a point of order on you. Conclude, Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, when dry bones are mentioned in a proverb, some people feel jittery. I am talking about the rights and fundamental freedoms that are in the Constitution. Every Kenyan deserves a right to work in public. And that is what the young people are asking for. They are asking for human dignity to be observed. Our people want to be treated properly, like human beings. They don't want to be treated like animals, like we have seen out there in the streets. Our people, our young people, want freedom of conscience, religion, belief, and opinion. They want freedom of expression. They want freedom of association, freedom to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket and petition, and not to be greeted by bullets. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about 39 people dead, it's as if we are counting heaps of logs of firewood. These are children of people. There's a mother somewhere shedding tears today, Mr. Speaker. There is a father somewhere talking about the lost opportunities as a result of a young person doing what he was told he can do comfortably under this Constitution. When you talk about the 39, we are talking about Ibrahim Kamau. Ibrahim Kamau had just left high school, Mr. Speaker. He was felled by a sniper outside this parliament. He was killed within the presence of parliament. We are talking about David Chege, a computer science graduate from Jomo Kenyatta University, felled by a sniper's bullet outside this parliament. The blood has not died in the grass of parliament. We are talking about Eric Shieni, a university student. We are talking about Evans Kiratu, who was killed by a tear gas when tear gas exploded on him. We are talking about Rex Kanyike, Brian Kasaine. Gen Z are saying, grant us the rights that are due to us in the Constitution. More importantly, Gen Zs are demanding that the economic and social rights that are granted unto them in this Constitution and which belong to them, it's not granted by the state. The duty of the state is to fulfill it. These rights belong to the Gen Zs and to the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, you don't need a committee of rocket scientists. You don't need a committee of experts. You don't need people from the United Nations to come and interpret for you this Constitution. The answers to the problems are all here. Gen Zs are saying, let us ensure that Chapter 6 of this Constitution is observed and fulfilled, because we have made leadership, and particularly political office, an opportunity to lord over other people and not to serve them. Mr. Speaker, I believe that if the government sat back and reflected, they would realize that all the answers and all the solutions are here. I want to propose further, Mr. Speaker, as we craft this motion and as a leader of majority brings further amendments. I am particularly disturbed when I see the military walking around the streets of Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, we have seen what has happened in neighboring countries. Let us not tempt our military. Let us keep them in the barracks. Let them do the spectacular job they have always done of defending and protecting this nation from external aggression. When you bring the military to the streets, it is like exposing a child to sugar or a child to honey. It has been seen before, it has happened before. South Sudan, Sudan, Maine, Mr. Speaker. Sudan was a big economy. It was booming. The agricultural sector, the petroleum and mining sector was booming. Sudan is now in shambles. Ethiopia, Mr. Speaker. Ethiopia was an economy that was competing with Kenya. It was poised to overtake Kenya. Safaricom went into Ethiopia, and Kenyan banks and insurance companies wanted to go into Ethiopia. It was messed up by the military. Our resolution, despite what the High Court has done and what the National Assembly did, let the military take the tanks back to the barracks. That should be a resolution of this House. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I have heard some instances of sibling rivalry. Because the Senate is sitting and the National Assembly is in hiding, there are people who are saying, scrap the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell those who say scrap the Senate that we've got a good record as a Senate. We have referred 146 cases to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And Mr. Speaker, out of the 146 cases, very few of them have been investigated or prosecuted to the final conclusion. And we have told EACC we are going to bring them here before the Committee of the Whole. And Mr. Speaker, I want to tell Gen Z please pay EACC a visit. There is a problem there. You guys need to go and visit and say hello to the EACC because we have a problem. Mr. Speaker, this House, in terms of accountability, has impeached at least 5 governors. That is 10% of the counties. Can our brothers tell us how many ministers they have impeached? This House has gone to the Supreme Court to seek opinions that has developed jurisprudence in this nation. This House in unison marched to Milimani. And Mr. Speaker, in our march to Milimani, the late Senator Haji, the Senator Gideon Moy, the senators that you could not imagine were the ones who were leading our march to Milimani on the concurrence matter. Mr. Speaker, this Senate has taken its services and its sittings out of Nairobi. And I think we've gone to 4 counties. This Senate has organized legislative conferences and devolution conferences. They should tell us the last time the National Assembly sat outside Nairobi. But it does not matter, Mr. Speaker, because in the end, the difference between us and them is like the difference between a cheetah and a leopard. And in my community, we have one name for both. And so it does not matter whether we voted yes or no. We are all collectively in this. Mr. Speaker, the SRC matter has been dealt with, and I think perhaps what we should have said is that what should have gone to MPs as a salary increment should be redirected to a certain course, perhaps the course of doctors or the course of the junior secondary school teachers. I would like in this motion, Mr. Speaker, for the majority leader to include another action, that the Cabinet Secretary to the Treasury, Professor Njuguna, who has the habit of snubbing the Senate every time we invite him, to invoke Article 225 on any county executive that gets an adverse opinion. What Article 225 talks about is that 50% of funds are withheld until the county comes up with a recovery action plan. And Mr. Speaker, 10% of the money we send to counties is wasted. Not stolen, wasted. Utilized on things that are not necessary. And all our budgets at a national level, 10% is wasted. Mr. Speaker, I want that motion to direct that we go towards a digital government. There are so many meetings that we hold that do not require people to be in the same room. We can do Zoom, we can use virtual technologies, and the Commission should tell us, when there was COVID, they told us we were procuring a system to facilitate virtual parliament. Why are we still using Zoom, which cannot work properly and can be hacked? So we must drive towards a digital government. Mr. Speaker, on constitutional commissions, Senator Omtata has made a strong case. We must demand that we are part of Parliament and we must be involved in allocation of budgets to constitutional commissions. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Mr. Speaker, is being overshadowed by the Law Society of Kenya. And I want to congratulate the leadership of the Law Society of Kenya. They have stood up for the rights of persons who are involved in this protest. They have done better than the Constitutional Commission that is supposed to guarantee observance of human rights in this republic. They have done better than the Commission on Administration of Justice. The last time I heard my friend and sister, the Ombudsman, speak, she was speaking about Muguka. She was not talking about the rights of people and maladministration in this country, which is supposed to be her duty. I hope Gen Zs can also pay her a visit. Mr. Speaker, the National Gender and Equalization Commission is not doing what they should be doing. I hope they can also be paid a visit. Mr. Speaker, I want to...
Senator Kajwang, 2 minutes to wind up your thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was about to suggest that they pay you a visit, but you have...
With that, can you take your seat? Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, we shall protect you. And Mr. Speaker, I conclude by supporting and thanking Senator Aaron Cheriot and Senator Madzaya for this motion. Let us stand for this country. Let us do the right things. If this country burns, Mr. Speaker, we have nowhere to go. You have seen the frustration and the problems our brothers and sisters from South Sudan face. Sudan is in fire. Ethiopia is burning. Our neighboring countries are in problems. The Democratic Republic of Congo is on the precipice. Even Rwanda itself is on the precipice. We cannot afford to go that route. And the person who takes us to that route, Mr. Speaker, will not be the Gen Z. It will be us in office. It will be the wickedness in high places. It will be the principalities and powers that reside in State House, that reside in this Senate, and that reside in the National Assembly that will take us there. If we are the problem, then the Gen Zs have all legitimate rights to kick us out. But let us smell the coffee, let us wake up before it gets too late. I believe that Kenya can be redeemed. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Roba.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to start with sharing my condolences with the families and the friends and the entire country for the 34 souls that were lost in this exercise. Now, I just hear from my colleague that the number has gone to 39. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to also share my sympathies with the Kenyans, innocent Kenyans whose properties were either looted or vandalized. I also stand here, Mr. Speaker, sir, because often little problems that happen tend to overshadow the bigger picture of what our security forces have been able to do. While there are rogue security officers that have caused a lot of pain to Kenyans, but there are those that have really stood very firm to protect this country from going into anarchy, and by making sure they abided by keeping law and order without also violating the rights of our protesters as enshrined in the Constitution. I say this because I watched a very emotional video, Mr. Speaker, sir, where an armed police officer with a gun, with everything, was chased down the street. He could have opted to use the gun to protect himself, but accepted to be clobbered by the mob for the sake of making sure that extrajudicial killing does not happen. And we have such security officers that we must have, applaud and also share our sympathies with them for doing an excellent job. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to also congratulate Generation Z for the unprecedented success in this country. And what they have achieved over a few days is going to go down the democratic space of this country as an indelible mark in the nation, Kenya, for many years to come. Mr. Speaker, sir, for many people, maybe understanding the plight of Gen Z was a very difficult issue. I have a daughter who is in Form 2, Mr. Speaker, and I was away. I called. She was in midterm break, and I called to say bye-bye because she was going back to school. And the only question she asked me, Baba, can I ask you something? Are you supporting the finance bill? And she's in a boarding school. And I told her, no, Baba, I'm not supporting. And she said, had you answered you're supporting Baba, I would never been able to raise my head up in school because everybody knows my father is a member of parliament. These are the unfortunate scenarios we have, whereas maybe the adults don't understand. Our Gen Z have really understood what is bedeviling them. Mr. Speaker, sir, maybe it's worth to reflect on what is the true frustration of Gen Z. You look at the public service advertisement in Kenya. Only those that are able and have money will have access to opportunities in the public service, whether it is at the national level or at the county level. Now you have children going to school and going through the most levels of higher education, but with zero hope of getting employed. Then they look at the budget of the nation and they try and comb through the budget to see if there is only hope contained in that budget that is going to really help them out, and they see nothing. And they see an opportunity that oppresses more in the finance bill, and that has boiled into a situation where they had taken the matters into their hand. Madam Speaker, sorry, I did not notice the seat has changed. Madam Speaker, while I congratulate Gen Z for exercising their right to, demonstrate and share their concerns, I also wish to point out that the exercise of freedom of picketing should be practiced in moderation and with a lot of control, so that the exercise of that right does not infringe on the right of others, as it is. Madam Speaker, true wisdom lies in recognizing that smart people do not invite anarchy upon themselves, but rather find every little opportunity for them to fight anarchy. I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to have had experience in my past life as a pilot, to have worked with the UN agencies in more than 10 devastated countries. And that is, name them: South Sudan under Operation Lifeline Sudan, North Sudan, Darfur section, Central African Republic, Chad, Somalia, Afghanistan, Congo, Liberia, among others. And I've seen real life what anarchy means in terms of the level of devastation, the level of suffering, the level of human suffering mothers, women, and children undergo, for you to be able to imagine that this country can easily be allowed to go into anarchy. It is extremely important as leaders, and I want to take this opportunity at this juncture to really immensely appreciate the efforts of the House leadership, particularly the majority leader and the minority leader, for this bipartisan approach, for us to be able to do moments of sincere self-reflection as leaders in this country, and also as the moment that has really awoken, the true humbleness in the leadership as it is. Madam Speaker, I want to, maybe take this opportunity as the Chair of Finance and Budget, because I've seen the memorandum that the President has sent back to National Assembly. That memorandum ought to have also come to the Senate, but nevertheless, I want to take this opportunity to advise the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury to be able to get to understand first. Government ministries, whether at the county level or national level, have the tendency to use different words to mean the same thing for purpose of generating budget lines to be allocated money. If the Cabinet Secretary will sit on the budget of the government of Kenya, I'm 100% sure he will be able to come through to reduce the amount of deficit, maybe as a result of the finance bill having been rejected by the President. Issues to do with recurrent expenditure, feel good allocations to politically correct individuals in form of development that are absolutely unnecessary, and issues to do with renovation, refreshment, training and development, and many other issues, including foreign and domestic travel. I would like to urge National Treasury to really get through, comp the numbers in order to be able to get a rational budget that is able to really capture the aspiration of Kenyans as well as Gen Z in terms of living within our means. Now, Madam Speaker, let me come to the realities of the government of our President, President William Samoei Ruto. Madam Speaker, I was in Azimio in the last general election. But after election, through invitation, I managed to join Kenya Kwanza government. And by joining, we happen to have majority in the Senate and majority in the National Assembly. However, Madam Speaker, the President was very wise, maybe enough, to have considered those that have supported him and give them cabinet consideration. However, 2 years have passed. August next month, 2 years would have lapsed in the first term of government. It is about time for the President to be able to really look very, very deeply into whether or not political reward has really managed to help him manage the political government into delivering the result that is required. I say this because I have first-hand experience on many issues. I have examples of cabinet secretaries. I am a co-principal in Kenya Kwanza, but I have cabinet secretaries in this government that have tried to really look for, try to make phone calls to, not for personal issue, but issues affecting the public that have elected us into office to represent them. Phone calls are not responded to. Messages are not responded to. And when you walk to the office that is supposed to be providing services, the offices, the occupant of the offices are not in the office. A period of 6 months have passed, to the level that I decided to take my frustration to the President of the Republic of Kenya and share with him trivial issues that could have been managed at the Cabinet Secretary's office, which is their mandate to do, and the political leaders have a responsibility of representation, which is a critical role that they need to undertake on behalf of the people that elected them into office. And only for the President to call and share the same issues I would have shared with the respective Cabinet Secretary. And I was asked to go and see the Cabinet Secretary. 6 months down the line, I am unable to see that Cabinet Secretary. Now the question I ask myself, my issues are very minor. I can overlook and forget about it. But the question is, who is managing the political government of President RUTO? Who is managing? If the Cabinet Secretaries do not understand their role, that everything must be done by the President of the Republic of Kenya, trivial issues that the President should not even speak to, issues that a Cabinet Secretary needs to attend to. And instead, what we have are Cabinet Secretaries that are working.
Senator Keroche, can you please consult in
What we have are Cabinet Secretaries that are working as CEOs of private entities. They talk to who they want, be in the office when they want, and they make feel-good appointments that are picture smart. The other issue, as I observed, because this is an excellent moment of reflection, where they've dubbed our president into launching projects that the procurement process has not been even finished. Project then that in this age of information, project that the president goes, he does groundbreaking. 6 months later, nothing has happened. Who are responsible for that? Cabinet secretaries. Why? Because they are looking for picture smart opportunities for them to be able to be seen they are working. Now we have a situation where unless the president speaks, you don't see any cabinet secretary speaking in defense of the government. You don't see them moving. Okay, you find them flying, only for them to get opportunities that will make them, a feel-good opportunity for that matter. The president is faced with a huge challenge when it comes to most cabinet members. A few of them are very diligent at delivering, but most cabinet secretaries are not delivering for the president. And the president cannot run the country and also run the political government of that country. It requires cabinet members who are able to do their responsibilities with minimum supervision. Madam Speaker, at some point, I shared, some unfortunate advice, maybe even to our president. He does not have to go every other Sunday to a new church, because he will be bombarded with requests And those requests, he will be forced to make promises that it will be impossible to fulfill. It makes the president look bad. Maybe the same way President Moi, Marehemu President Moi, President Kibaki were able to go to churches within the CBD so that you are able to provide a lot of time to supervise your ministries as required. Our president also does not have to fly every other day to this small event you are invited to this other small event you are invited to. An MP tells you there is some small event, you go. You lack the time required for you to sit down and supervise your ministries in the State House and for you to be able to reflect on the performance of your ministries as required. It is extremely critical that our president does not respond to every little issue that is there. For example, I was very pained as a leader in Kenya Kwanza when, when reporters who are also fighting for fame and space, you invite them in the middle of chaos for interview to State House. These reporters themselves are fighting for space. Why do you invite them? Then you are able to give, you want to inform the country, do press briefing. That does not require for you to, and then you get reporters that themselves, that is an opportunity for them to really, make you look bad and fight for fame themselves. It's a very unfortunate scenario that took shape. Our president does not have to speak every time. He shouldn't speak every time to every little issue that comes up. He needs to reflect more. Use the cabinet and other structures of government to be able to speak government positions as required. And I want to really, end by in the moment of the opportunity, end by saying two issues. I would like to urge His Excellency the President, Madam Speaker, I would like to urge him to get to understand it is very easy for Kenya to accomplish free secondary education in this country. We only need to restructure CDF so that you don't have parents going to the doors of members of parliament begging them for school fees, and school fees being dished out as a favor. School fees being dished out as a favor to these parents. Or if you are not politically correct, you don't get. Why should Kenya of the 21st century be able to be subjecting itself to that? Yet there's a lot of money in the name of CDF where the members of parliament are using it as a privilege to say, I can do that for you, or you didn't support me, forget about it. The government can provide free secondary education, something that will be popular and will make this president look good, something that will identify with Gen Z, and they're able to understand that their plight has been looked into by the government of the day. It is not impossible. My governor has tried to provide free secondary education. It's a little bit challenging, but in Mandera it's taking shape. Why can't it be replicated in the whole nation? And all we need is to restructure CDF so that the amounts being used can be directed and free secondary school be provided to our younger generations and those that are unable to pay their fees. Madam Speaker, in the interest of time, I beg to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Roba. Senator Mwaruma Jones Mwashusha.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa hii fursa umenipa ili kuchangia huu mjadala mchakato wa kutathmini hali halisi ya nchi hii yetu ya Kenya. Kwanza kabisa nishukuru kiongozi walio wengi, Senator wa Kericho Aaron Cheriot, na kiongozi walio wachache, Senator wa Kilifi hakimu mstaafu Stuart Mazayo, kwa kuleta huu mswada wa kuangalia hali halisi ya Kenya. La pili, nishukuru maseneta na hii nyumba kukubali kubakia ili kuangalia vile Kenya ilivyo, kwa sababu sasa hivi Mheshimiwa Spika, Kenya iko katika njia panda. Mheshimiwa Spika, bunge la kitaifa liliamua kwenda nyumbani na kukimbia wakati Kenya inawahitaji. Kwa hivyo nishukuru maseneta wote. La pili, Mheshimiwa Spika, nichukue fursa kwa niaba yangu na wananchi wa Taita Taveta kutoa risala za rambirambi kwa ndugu, jamaa na marafiki ambao walipoteza watu wao wakati wa maandamano. Haya maandamano, Mheshimiwa Spika, yalikuwa ni ya kupinga mswada wa fedha ambayo yaliongozwa na vijana wanajiita Gen Z ama kizazi cha Zuma. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hekima ya Rais aliamua kwamba huo mswada au uondoe na urudi kwa bunge la kitaifa. Hiyo ilikuwa ni hekima yake. Lakini hekima nyingine, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu tuko mahali hatuaminiani, ni vyema bunge la kitaifa lirudi na liangalie mapendekezo ya Rais ili huo mswada tuwe sawa kabisa na tuwe na uhakika ya kwamba umeondolewa kikamilifu. Kwa sababu sheria, Mheshimiwa Spika, inasema kwamba baada ya siku 14 hata kama Rais hajatia kisaini, basi ule mswada utaanza kutekelezwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati tumekuwa katika njia panda, wakati mwingi kama Wakenya tumesimama na kuongea, na si mara ya kwanza tumeanza kuongea kwa sababu ya nchi yetu. Mwaka wa 97 tuliongea katika ile ufungamano initiative. Mwaka wa 2019 pia tuliongea na kuja na mapendekezo ya ile inaitwa BBI, ingawaje ilienda vile ilienda. Na sasa hivi pia, Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiona watu wanaandamana, hiki ni kiini tu cha juu ya kwamba Wakenya hawana furaha na yale yanayoendelea katika nchi yao. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia watafiti wengi ambao wanafanya utafiti Kenya, washasema tayari kwamba Wakenya hawana imani na uongozi na hawafurahii pale Kenya inapoelekea. Mheshimiwa Spika, hawa vijana wa kizazi cha Zuma walipigana na kuandamana kwa sababu ya huu mswada wa